Hello there, fellow folks. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back for Anime Podcast Show. For this, I'll be talking about history of anime. It's because we hit the milestone as of today, and it's going to be October 4th. Why did I say that is October 4th today? Well, because this is the 30th anniversary to a controversial of the mecha series of all time. That's right, this is the 30th year for this series. It's called EVA, or known as Neon Genesis Evangelion. Before we talk about Evangelion, who is the mastermind of this massive franchise? His name is Hideaki Anno. He was born in Yamagata, Japan on May 22nd, 1960. He began his career as an animator for an anime series, Super Dimensional Fortress Macross, or aka Robotech. At the same time, as an animator, he attended to Osaka University of Arts. However, he stopped paying his tuition. Eventually, he got expelled, so he continued what he loves. His next project was with Hayao Miyazaki, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. However, it did not get any recognition until it got released. However, in December of 1984, a day before Christmas, Gainax was born. They worked on numerous projects, such as Royal Space Force, Gunbuster, and Nadia. Those projects, it was 50-50 back and forth of success. However, in his early 30s, he felt a deep depression of an anxiety and stress he went through from the productions of Nadia and a failed project sequel of Royal Space Force. And he took those depression into his next project that would be Neon Genesis Evangelion. He began working on developing it in 1993. The idea included a TV series, a film, and OVA. Eventually, producers settled on a television series, the most accessible format in Japan at the time. Anno convinced Evangelion as a metaphor for his 4-year-long depression. He poured his entire self into the project, aiming to express his own emotional and psychological struggles. The series combines mecha, think of Gundam, with religious symbolism and deep psychological themes. But production was plagued with tight deadlines, creative struggles, and budget issues. Finally, on October 4th, 1995, Evangelion finally premiered on TV Tokyo. At first, it was a cult hit. People weren't entirely sure what to make of it, but everything changed with the final 2 episodes. They abandoned the centered conflict with the angels, leaving many plot lines unresolved. The audience expected a traditional mega conclusion, and got a deeply introspective, abstract finale instead. And they're like, what? What the frick? What the fuck was that? And when they said, congratulations, congratulations, congratulations. What the hell was that? After the finale ended, it sparked massive backlash controversy. Even sending death threats against Anno and the Gainax staff, fans demanded a proper ending. So, the studio responded with 2 feature films. And the 2 feature films are, one is a compilation and the other is original. So that would be Death and Rebirth and End of Eva. Both of them came out throughout of 1997. For Death and Rebirth contains clips from the first 24 episodes, and the second as a true finale feature film, provided a completion new ending as a retell of the 25th and 26th episodes. To be honest, with End of Eva came a very success and grossed 1.45 billion yen, but nowadays it's kind of like $19 to $25 million, I believe. But people, are you happy now? Are you happy with this decision? Wrong. Half the fan base still hated it. Anyway, before we talk about the dubs, I want to mention about the era of Rebuild. So let's rewind about that. So to Anno's idea for a new Eva story, since 2000, Hideaki Anno had been thinking about rebuilding the series. Not just to fix the original ending, but to give Evangelion a fresh start. However, the rebuild was meant as a way to open doors for the franchise's future to new creators and turned Evangelion into a new Gundam liking, with G Gundam as an inspired choice how they can approach as a new aspect. However, that original project didn't came what he wants to do with it. He eventually began working on the rebuild films in the fall of 2002, spending nearly 6 months on pre-production before delays hit. Anno got pulled into other projects, such as Cutie Honey live-action movie, OVA, Fully Cooley, and Aim for the Top 2, originally titled G Evangelion or simply Evangelion 2. The rebuild project was supposed to be led by a new director, but Anno couldn't find someone too willing to take the torch, but the pressure was just too intense, so he took his responsibility himself. So the production had begun in 2005. In 2006, the project was announced, made on October 5th, 2006. However, the first film's production went smoothly. The first rebuild film came out in September of 2007. However, February in that year, Anno released an official statement as opposed to explain for his motivation to create a new version of Eva. He actually wants to revisit the anime, reach younger audiences, and reimagine Eva not as a return to the past, but as a step forward. As Anno's state interview that 2.0 and 3.0 were originally going to be a two-part of films. However, transformed into a 4-part story, which was stated to come out in 2008. However, those plans did not work, because they need the CG animation to look beautiful with the 2D animation. It takes a year or two, or even 3 maybe, to produce and make those films. Those plans eventually changed with the major changes as it started for the second film. By the time the third film went on production, Anno was sent into another bout of depression, mirroring his original Eva experience back in late 95 to early 96. During its original run's production, they set to release for the films, so 1.0 is supposed to come out in early summer of 2007 to the fall, then 2.0 from 2008 to 2009, the third originally for a 3-part film for Eva, and I think it's going to be titled called Eva Final, was supposed to come out in the summer of 2008 to the fall of 2012. Then we hit in the year of 2012. The final film was briefly listed in Kara's website for a 2013 release. However, it got slated for a winter 2015 release. However, that project was stalled. So Anno got tied up with other projects. They did not continue working on the project until 2017. Between that time, the production went smoothly. They had a planned schedule for June 2020. However, it received 2 more delays due to concerns of the goddamn pandemic. So they decided to move it to March of 2021 as thrice upon a time as Anno's final Eva project. Now, let's move on to the English dubs of Neon Genesis Evangelion. It started off in the year of 1996. ADV Group got the rights to dub the series using their Houston recording talent and it straight to VHS, as our introduction into anime from late 90s to early 2000s. Anywho, it was released from 1996 to 1998 for over 13 VHS tapes. Then they released the series on DVD between from 2002 to 2011, as they were out of print after 2011. Then in 2002, Manga Entertainment distributed and dubbed for Neon Genesis Evangelion Death of Rebirth and End of Eva. Also, only for Eva, it released in theaters, but it released on DVD later. However, with ADV, they dubbed the director's cut in 2003 to 2004. Before mentioning about the rebuilds, did Eva air the series on TV? Actually, to be honest, yes. But it's crazy. Well, I did talk about this a long time ago, but I can explain it with this history. First, it actually started airing the series in Australia back in 1999 on SBS. That stands for Special Broadcasting Service. It was distributed by Madman Entertainment. Then it finally aired on TV in the US for 2 episodes on Cartoon Network's Toonami Giant Robot Week in 2003. And it finally had a full run on Adult Swim in 2005. However, the movies, End of Eva, sadly never got aired on Adult Swim. However, End of Eva actually hit back in early 2003, I believe, or 2004, I'm not really sure, in SBS, aired in Australia. It's funny enough, I'd actually found an old commercial, but now I can't find it. It's weird, because I found it during the pandemic, and now it's removed on YouTube, so if somebody else can find it, please let me know. So, with the Rebuild films, it aired 2 films in 2013 on Adult Swim's Toonami 1.0 and 2.0, You Can Not Advance, and You Are Not Alone. I'm pretty sad that the last 2 films never aired on Toonami. Speaking about the films, let's talk about the dubs. In 2008, Funimation announces the rights for the first film and seemed to already dubbed it. Exciting enough, they got the original ADV cast of Shinji, Asuka, Misato, and Gendo. 1.0 dubs came out in 2009. Then, in 2010, they acquired for the second film. They dubbed it, released in 2011. For the third film, You Cannot Redo, got pretty weird that they acquired in 2014 for a theatrical release. However, it got delayed for 2 years until be released in 2016 for a home video release, and they dubbed it again in 2015 to do some more adjustments. So the Rebuild films won't be returned until in 2021. But then, fuck! In 2018, the series got remastered by, drumroll please, by goddamn Netflix. However, the cast we grew up with did not reprise their roles. So they got recast by VSILA. No offense to the new cast. I know a lot of voice actors from this dub, but to be honest, their direction made so many mistakes, including the Japanese too, with the pronunciations, but the way they translated it is just freaking terrible. But one thing I have to blame, like I just mentioned, it's just a fucking translation from Japan, which made it more accurate, quote unquote, but it's actually not. I prefer the translation from ADV. They did a great job with it, but then they fucked it up. Sorry, I have to go on a rant on this. Finally, the final dubs we have is from Amazon Prime, the redubs of Rebuild, movies 1 to 3, including with the new movie, Thrice Upon a Time. Actually enough, with that dub, they got some of the original cast back, and one back from Funimation dub. Anyway, now we are fully closer to here is, what is the legacy for this franchise? So, Neon Genesis Evangelion redefined anime forever. It took the mecha genre and broke it apart, replacing heroical fantasy with raw, psychological, existential drought, and broken characters searching for meaning. More than just a show, Evangelion became a cultural force, influencing animation, film, fashion, music, and even mental health discourse. Its unforgettable imagery, haunting themes, and emotional performances sparked decades of discussion, analysis, and devotion. With multiple endings, global controversies, and a fan base that never let it go, Eva proved that anime could be personal, painful, and still be connected to the characters that you know. What shows or movies or whatever still connects to you with millions. In the end, Eva wasn't just about saving the world. It was about learning to live in it. Anyway, that is it for the Neon Genesis Evangelion anniversary. Happy 30 years, y'all. Thank you, Hideaki Anno, to create a controversial, or I would say, an impactful series of all time. Hope you guys enjoy it. Comment, like, and subscribe. If y'all haven't subscribed to me yet, there's plenty more content coming before near the end of the year. Anywho, I'll see y'all next time. Take care, and see you later.